20 de octubre de 2025. Un telescopio privado capta algo que no debería existir. Estás viendo las coordenadas 13 horas 48 minutos 57 33 segundos, negativo 8 grado 25 minutos 54 3 segundos, la posición exacta que nos dio la NASA para el Atlas 3i. Pero esta imagen, sin procesar, proveniente del telescopio solar de un astrónomo aficionado, muestra algo que desafía todas las reglas que conocemos sobre los cometas. Hay una estructura, un escudo calentado que apunta directamente al Sol, un núcleo oscuro con colores invertidos, una tenue, una nube cónica que se extiende en la dirección equivocada. Y esto es lo que debería detenerte. No tiene cola. Cada cometa, de lo que has oído hablar alguna vez, tiene cola. No es opcional, es física. El viento solar aleja el gas y el polvo del Sol, siempre, sin excepción. Entonces, ¿qué estamos viendo realmente? Ahora mismo, el objeto que se esconde tras nuestra estrella. El que llega en el momento perfecto para una maniobra de aterrizaje. El que emite aleaciones industriales que solo hemos visto en naves espaciales humanas acaba de ser fotografiado haciendo algo imposible. Y hoy vamos a repasar cada pieza de evidencia, cada teoría, cada posibilidad de lo que podría pasar el 29 de octubre. Cuando esto llegue al perihelio, si te parece tan fascinante como a mí, dale me gusta y suscríbete. Luego dime en los comentarios desde dónde lo escuchas y qué hora es. Y, sinceramente, ¿crees que esto es natural o algo más? Y si quieres ayudar a que nuestra comunidad crezca, comparte esto en X, Facebook, Reddit o Messenger. Gracias por siempre apoyarnos. La imagen que lo cambia todo. La fotografía apareció en las redes sociales a las 16 horas, hora universal del 20 de octubre. Nombre de usuario: Dobsonian Power, astrónomo aficionado con un telescopio solar. Nada sofisticado, nada institucional, solo alguien que sabía dónde apuntar sus equipos y tenían la capacidad técnica para observar objetos cerca del Sol cuando cada misión importante, el observatorio ha estado extrañamente silencioso respecto a hacer exactamente eso. La imagen muestra 3 atlas a una distancia donde debería exhibir un comportamiento cometario clásico. Estamos hablando de un objeto que se ha estado acercando a nuestro Sol durante meses ya, calentándose, supuestamente desgasificándose, construyendo esa cola característica que cada cometa desarrolla, como la radiación solar sublima el hielo de su superficie. Esa cola debería ser obvia, debería ser prominente, debería ser apuntando lejos del Sol como una bandera en el viento, porque así es como funciona la física en nuestro sistema solar. Pero eso no es lo que vemos. Lo que la imagen revela es un avión de frente. El cartel lo describió como un escudo térmico. Este chorro apunta directamente al Sol, no lejos de él, sino hacia él. Y antes, ¿crees que esto podría ser una ilusión óptica o un artefacto del proceso de obtención de imágenes? Recuerda, esto es un telescopio diseñado específicamente para observar objetos en las proximidades del Sol. Los puntos de colores dispersos por el imagen son píxeles calientes y fríos del sensor de la cámara. Se esperaba ruido estándar. Pero esa estructura de chorro, señal real. El núcleo aparece oscuro en el esquema de color invertido que utilizó el observador. Esto es normal para este tipo de imágenes solares. Lo anormal es la falta de actividad de coma circundante que cabría esperar de un cometa a esta distancia. Hay una leve bocanada extendida. Claro, el observador notó que se extiende hacia la esquina superior izquierda del marco, pequeña, contenido, nada que ver con la enorme envoltura de gas y polvo que debería rodear a un cometa activo tan cerca al perihelio. Basemos esto en lo que sabemos sobre la física de los cometas. Cuando un cometa se acerca al Sol, La radiación solar calienta su superficie. El hielo se sublima. El hielo de agua, hielo de dióxido de carbono, hielo de monóxido de carbono. Estos materiales no se derriten como el hielo en tu bebida. Pasan directamente de sólido a gas. Ese gas transporta polvo, partículas con él al escapar de la débil gravedad del cometa. Esto crea la coma, la atmósfera difusa que rodea el cometa. Núcleo. El viento solar y la presión de la radiación empujan este material lejos del Sol, creando la cola. A veces, dos colas. Una cola de polvo que se curva ligeramente a lo largo de la órbita del cometa. Una cola de iones que apunta directamente del Sol, arrastradas por el viento solar como cabellos en un huracán. Este proceso es tan fiable y bien comprendido que podemos predecir cómo debería verse un cometa a cualquier distancia del Sol basándonos en su tamaño y composición. Hemos estado observando cometas durante miles de años. Hemos enviado naves espaciales a ellos. Hemos aterrizado en ellos. Entendemos. El comportamiento de los cometas es similar al que conocemos cuando el agua hierve o el hierro se oxida. 3 Atlas no sigue el guión. El usuario que publicó esta imagen declaró claramente que usaría un telescopio en noviembre después del perihelio para verlo en vivo. Piense en esa frase después del perihelio, después de que llegue alrededor del Sol. Esto nos dice algo sobre la estrategia de observación. Los telescopios solares son la única forma de ver objetos tan cerca del Sol desde la Tierra ahora mismo porque el resplandor abrumaría cualquier telescopio normal. Entonces, dependemos de equipos especializados y de las pocas personas que los tienen y saben cómo usarlos. Lo que plantea una pregunta inmediata. Pregunta, ¿dónde están las observaciones profesionales? ¿Dónde están las imágenes de los principales observatorios? Sabemos que tenemos el equipo, sabemos que 3 y 8 son coordenadas que pueden calcular con precisión. Entonces, ¿por qué un astrónomo aficionado nos da la evidencia visual más reciente de cómo luce realmente este objeto? El tiempo importa. Estamos a 21 de octubre mientras escuchas esto. La imagen de ayer muestra un atlas de 3 ojos, en una configuración que no se corresponde con la que debería tener un cometa. Hoy, ahora mismo, 3 atlas están en órbita solar. Conjunción. Está justo en el lado opuesto del Sol respecto a la Tierra, una posición perfecta para ocultarse. Y en 8 días... El 29 de octubre alcanza el perihelio, su aproximación más cercana al Sol, el momento cuando un cometa natural debería estar en su punto más activo, el momento en que, según el astrofísico de Harvard David Lowe, el objeto tecnológico ejecutaría una maniobra terrestre para maximizar la ganancia de energía del campo gravitacional del Sol. Hablemos de lo que realmente estamos viendo en esta imagen. Estructura por estructura, el chorro apuntando hacia el Sol. En la ciencia de los cometas, ocasionalmente vemos chorros. Son emisiones localizadas de áreas específicas del núcleo, donde el hielo está sublimando activamente. Estos chorros pueden apuntar en varias direcciones, dependiendo de la rotación del núcleo y donde las áreas activas están ubicadas, pero forman parte de un patrón de desgasificación más amplio. Contribuyen al conjunto, la estructura de la coma y la cola. Lo que no vemos aquí es ese patrón más grande. Vemos un chorro direccional y no, mucho más. Algunos investigadores han propuesto que el atlas de 3 años exhibe lo que ellos llaman una anticola, una característica que parece apuntar hacia el Sol en lugar de alejarse de él. Las anticolas son un fenómeno conocido. Son ilusiones ópticas causadas por la observación de la geometría. Cuando la Tierra pasa a través o cerca del plano de un cometa, en órbita, la cola de polvo puede parecer apuntar hacia el Sol. Como la vemos de canto, es como mirar un frisbee, de lado versus desde arriba. La forma parece completamente diferente, pero una anticola sigue siendo parte de una cola. Estructura. Todavía forma parte de una desgasificación masiva. Sigue rodeada por una coma brillante. La imagen del 20 de octubre no muestra eso. Muestra un chorro concentrado, una pequeña nube, un núcleo oscuro y muy poco más. El núcleo oscuro. En sí mismo es interesante. En imágenes solares en color invertido, los objetos brillantes aparecen oscuros. Por lo tanto, el núcleo aparece oscuro. Nos dice que refleja o emite luz. Pero la intensidad y distribución de esa luz no es, siguiendo el patrón esperado. Si este fuera el núcleo de un cometa normal, lo veríamos rodeado por una brillante capa de coma, material en este modo de imagen. La coma aparecería como un resplandor extendido que se desvanece gradualmente a medida que se desplaza hacia afuera del núcleo. En cambio, vemos estructuras definidas, el chorro, la bocanada, características geométricas en lugar de nubes difusas. Ahora, abordemos el problema obvio. ¿Podría ser simplemente una mala imagen? ¿Calidad? ¿Podría ser que la resolución del telescopio sea insuficiente para captar los detalles más finos de la coma y la cola? Pensemos en ello. Los telescopios de estilo dawsoniano, cuando están adecuadamente equipados para la observación solar, pueden resolver detalles significativos. No son de calidad profesional, es cierto, pero tampoco son juguetes. El usuario claramente. Capturaron el núcleo, capturaron la estructura alrededor del núcleo. Si eran una coma y una cola prominentes, esas serían las características más brillantes y obvias. Se verían incluso en una imagen de baja resolución. Piénsalo como fotografiar una farola en una noche de niebla, incluso con una cámara barata, capturarías el resplandor. Quizás no lo consigas. Detalles nítidos, pero se aprecia el brillo. Aquí no se ve el brillo. ¿Podrían explicarlo las condiciones atmosféricas? Turbulencia, nubes, humedad, posibles pero poco probables que enmascaren por completo las principales características estructurales y al mismo tiempo permitan el núcleo y el chorro se capturan con claridad. Los efectos atmosféricos se difuminan, no se ocultan selectivamente. ¿Podría ser importante el momento de la observación? Quizás el atlas de tres ojos se encontraba en una pausa temporal en su actividad. Los cometas pueden ser variable. Su desgasificación puede pulsar a medida que diferentes áreas del núcleo giran hacia la luz solar o a medida que el hielo del subsuelo se ha expuesto. Pero estamos hablando de un objeto a días del perihelio. Esto es cuando los cometas están en su pico de actividad. Es cuando son más brillantes, más activos y más espectaculares. Una pausa en este momento sería como una tetera que se queda en silencio justo antes de hervir. Posible, pero extraño. Acerquémonos. Abandone un momento y considere el contexto más amplio. El Atlas de Tree ha sido anómalo desde su descubrimiento. La lista de sus características inusuales siguen aumentando con cada observación. Comenzó a brillar mucho antes de lo esperado. Mostró una composición inusual con proporciones extremadamente altas de dióxido de carbono y agua. Demostró que la anticola estructura que apunta hacia el Sol. Una espectroscopia reciente reveló emisiones de níquel sin el hierro correspondiente, una firma asociada a los procesos industriales de refinación de metales. Su trayectoria lo trajo al sistema solar en una trayectoria alineada con el plano de la eclíptica, estadísticamente raro para un aleatorio visitante interestelar. Su dirección de origen apunta a 9 grados del punto donde se detectó la famosa señal ¡wow! En 1977. Cada anomalía puede explicarse individualmente. Las estadísticas producirán eventos raros. La composición varía entre cometas. Ver la geometría crea ilusiones ópticas. Pero cuando se acumulan anomalías, en algún momento, tienes que considerar si estás forzando una explicación natural a algo que podría no ser natural. La imagen del 20 de octubre se suma a esa pila. Muestra un objeto que debería mostrar un comportamiento de comentario obvio, y no lo es, o al menos no muestra el comportamiento de la manera esperada. Piensa en esto por un momento. Imagina que estás viendo agua en una olla sobre la estufa. Sabes que la estufa está a fuego alto. Sabes que el agua debería estar hirviendo, pero cuando miras, el agua está tranquila, tal vez ondulándose ligeramente, tal vez moviéndose. Odd patterns, but not boiling. Your first instinct might be to question your observation. Maybe the angle is wrong, maybe the lighting makes it hard to see the bubbles. But at some point, if the water persistently doesn't boil, you start questioning your assumptions about what's in the pot or whether the stove is actually on. You adjust your model of reality to match what you're observing rather than dismissing the observation because it doesn't fit the model. That's where we are with 3 Atlas right now. We expected a comet, we built our predictions on comet behavior. And reality keeps delivering something that doesn't quite match those predictions. The user who posted the image said they'll observe again in November with a normal telescope after perihelion. That's when 3A Atlas will re-emerge from behind the sun and be visible from Earth again.
Into the great
That's when
red
we'll
spot.
get another chance to see what it looks like, what condition it's in, whether it survived perihelion, intact or broke apart as a fragile comet nucleus should when subjected to the sun's tidal forces and intense heating. But November is still days away. Right now, today, 3 Atlas is behind the sun, hidden from our view at solar conjunction. And tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, it will be climbing toward perihelion, toward that moment on October 29th, when it receives maximum solar flux. When, if it's technological, it could execute the most energy-efficient maneuver possible. When if it's natural, it should put on the brightest display of outgassing and tail development we've seen from it yet. We won't see that moment directly. Earth-based telescopes can't observe through the sun, but we'll see the aftermath. We'll see what emerges from behind the sun in early November. We'll see whether this object disintegrates as Abby predicted a natural comet should, or whether it remains intact and potentially deploys something as he suggested a technological object might. The October 20th image is important because it's the last clear view we have before that hidden window. It's the baseline, the before picture, and what it shows is an object that's already not behaving as expected. An object with a forward, facing jet and minimal coma, no obvious tail, and a structure that looks more defined, more geometric, more intentional than the chaotic ouching of a natural ice ball being heated by a star. One more detail worth noting. The observer specifically mentioned this is a 100% raw picture, non-processed.
It's alive.
In astrophotography, processing is common. You stack images to reduce noise. You adjust curves to bring out faint details. You subtract backgrounds. But raw images are valuable because they show what the sensor actually captured without enhancement or interpretation. No processing means no artifacts introduced by software. No algorithmic decisions about what details to enfatiza. Solo fotones que inciden en un detector y se registran. Eso en bruto. La naturaleza, sin procesar, hace que la ausencia de una cola prominente sea aún más significativa. Si hubiera una cola, incluso una tenue, se verían los datos sin procesar. Las colas son brillantes, dispersan la luz solar eficazmente, están diseñadas por la física, ser visibles. Una imagen sin procesar debería capturarlos fácilmente, si existen. La hinchazón en forma de cono hacia la parte superior a la izquierda que el observador notó también es interesante. Pequeña, localizada, no. La expansión esférica que se esperaría de una desgasificación isotrópica, más bien como una liberación direccional, como algo, ser expulsado en una dirección específica por una razón específica. Hemos llegado a un punto en el que la pregunta no es si el Atlas de Three es extraño. Claramente lo es. La pregunta es si esa extrañeza cae dentro del amplio rango de posibilidades naturales para los cometas interestelares, o si estamos viendo algo nuestro, los modelos actuales no lo tienen en cuenta. Y eso es lo que hace que los próximos 8 días sean tan críticos. Sea lo que sea, el Three Atlas está a punto de ser sometido a las condiciones más intensas que jamás haya enfrentado desde que entró en nuestro sistema solar. La gravedad del Sol lo atraerá con máxima fuerza. La radiación solar lo golpeará con la máxima intensidad. Si es un frágil agregado de hielo y polvo unido por fuerzas débiles, debería, si es algo más robusto, algo diseñado para soportar estas condiciones, no lo hará. Lo sabremos pronto. La cuenta regresiva está en marcha. Faltan 8 días para el 29 de octubre. Y ahora mismo, oculto detrás de nuestro Sol, 13 Atlas se está moviendo hacia esa fecha, trayendo consigo todas las preguntas que no hemos respondido y todas las anomalías que no hemos explicado. Y ahora, gracias a un astrónomo aficionado con un telescopio solar, una prueba más de que este objeto no sigue las reglas. El video viral "Esto no es cometa". La segunda evidencia visual provino de un observador completamente diferente. El usuario BG Gates ha publicado información detallada, imágenes espaciales con un subtítulo que va directo al meollo del pensamiento de todos los espectadores. Últimas imágenes de el cometa Atlas se dirige actualmente hacia la Tierra. Solo hay un problema: no parecerse en algo a un cometa. Y tienen razón, no lo parece. Las imágenes muestran algo en el espacio profundo que desafía la clasificación inmediata. Es brillante y alargado. La forma no coincide con lo que esperamos de un cometa en esta etapa de aproximación. No hay una coma difusa evidente, ni una cola que se aleje del Sol. Lo que estamos viendo parece estructurado, geométrico. El tipo de forma que hace que los sistemas de reconocimiento de patrones se activen de maneras incómodas. Analicemos exactamente qué revela este vídeo y por qué genera reacciones tan fuertes en las personas que lo ven. El objeto aparece como una forma claramente lineal, no la masa irregular con forma de patata que asociamos con núcleos de cometas, no la bola redonda y difusa de coma que rodea ese núcleo. Lineal con bordes definidos con lo que parece ser un brillo consistente a lo largo de su longitud, en lugar del caótico, el brillo desigual que se esperaría de la desgasificación de hielo y polvo. La elongación es severa. Estamos buscando en algo donde el largo parece ser muchas veces el ancho, una relación de 6:1 como mínimo, posiblemente mayor dependiendo de donde se miden los límites exteriores de la luz visible. Ahora bien, los objetos alargados existen en el espacio, lo sabemos. Los asteroides pueden alargarse. Oumuamua fue famosa por su alargamiento, así que solo por el alargamiento no prueba nada. Pero combine ese alargamiento con todo lo demás visible en este metraje y el resultado general. La impresión cambia drásticamente. La distribución del brillo es notablemente suave. El movimiento natural. Los objetos en el espacio suelen mostrar variaciones en el brillo a medida que diferentes superficies giran a la vista. La luz y juego de sombras sobre terreno irregular. Los cráteres captan la luz de forma diferente a los aviones, pero este objeto muestra un brillo graduado. La luz no se refleja en una superficie rugosa. Parece más bien una misión, como si el objeto en sí brillara en lugar de simplemente reflejar la luz solar. Esa distinción es crucial. La luz solar reflejada transporta información sobre la superficie en la que rebota, textura, composición, irregularidad. La luz emitida, ya sea de reacciones químicas o procesos térmicos o cualquier otra cosa, aparece suave, controlado. no tiene esas huellas superficiales. El vídeo muestra este objeto contra el campo estelar de fondo. Las estrellas aparecen como se esperaba. Fuentes puntuales de luz, nítido y distinto. Pero el atlas de 3 ojos no se presenta como una fuente puntual, o incluso como una nube nebulosa extendida, como suelen hacer los cometas. Se presenta como una forma, una figura, algo con aparente estructura y dimensión. Varias personas que vieron este vídeo lo describen con la misma palabra, nave nodriza. Ahora, obviamente, esa es una terminología cargada. Implica origen artificial, implica propósito y diseño, pero también captura. Hay algo en la impresión visual que es difícil de eliminar. Parece algo que podría contener otras cosas, algo con espacio interior, algo construido en lugar de acumulado. Analicemos la explicación natural sistemáticamente. ¿Podría tratarse de un núcleo cometario con desgasificación simétrica que le da su apariencia alargada? En teoría, sí. Sí. Si tuvieras un núcleo alargado con chorros activos disparando desde ambos extremos a lo largo del eje largo, podrías crear este tipo de firma visual lineal. Los chorros extenderían la longitud aparente. El núcleo sería la región central brillante. El gas se desvanecería gradualmente a medida que se dispersa, pero los chorros de los cometas son rojizos, simétricos. Provienen de zonas activas donde el hielo del subsuelo queda expuesto a la luz solar. Estas áreas se distribuyen esencialmente aleatoriamente, según la formación del objeto y su historial de impactos. Alinear los chorros perfectamente a lo largo del eje largo en direcciones opuestas requiere condiciones muy específicas. No es imposible, solo improbable. E incluso si tuvieras esa configuración, aún esperarías ver alguna asimetría, alguna irregularidad, alguna indicación de los procesos físicos caóticos que impulsan la desgasificación. Esta grabación no muestra ese caos, muestra orden. ¿Importa el ángulo de visión? Por supuesto. Al observar cualquier objeto tridimensional, la percepción de su forma depende completamente de la geometría de su vista. Un disco visto de canto parece una línea, una esfera vista desde cualquier. El ángulo parece un círculo. Así que quizás el atlas de 3 es en realidad una forma más convencional y solo estamos viendo desde un ángulo que la hace parecer alargada y estructurada. Pero aquí está el problema con esa explicación. Tenemos múltiples observaciones desde distintos ángulos a lo largo de varios meses. Ahora el atlas de 3 ha estado avanzando a través de espacio. La Tierra se ha estado moviendo en su órbita, la geometría de la vista ha estado cambiando constantemente. Si esto fuera un artefacto del ángulo de visión, esperaríamos que la apariencia cambiara significativamente a medida que cambian esos ángulos. Veríamos el objeto parece rotar, cambiar de forma o revelar características diferentes. En cambio, lo que informan varios observadores es esta apariencia consistente, alargada y estructurada. ¿Podría ser un artefacto de imagen? ¿El telescopio, la cámara o el procesamiento podrían estar creando características que no existen realmente? En astrofotografía, los artefactos son comunes. Los picos de difracción de los soportes de los telescopios, la proliferación de píxeles sobresaturados y los impactos de rayos cósmicos en el sensor, la distorsión atmosférica. Siempre hay que considerar si lo que se ve es una señal real o ruido técnico. Pero los artefactos tienen firmas características de fracción. Los picos son simétricos y están centrados en fuentes puntuales brillantes. El blooming se extiende a lo largo de las columnas de píxeles. Los rayos cósmicos aparecen como líneas rectas o puntos. La distorsión atmosférica difumina, pero no crea formas estructuradas. Ninguna de ellas coincide. Lo que vemos en esta grabación La forma es demasiado consistente, demasiado estable, demasiado geométrica. El otro factor que juega en contra de la explicación del artefacto es que varios observadores independientes ahora informan características visuales similares. Imagen del telescopio solar dobsoniano de potencia del 20 de octubre. Este espacio profundo, imágenes, equipos diferentes, observadores diferentes, técnicas de imagen diferentes, pero ambos muestran un objeto que no se ajustan a la apariencia estándar del comentario. Cuando las observaciones independientes convergen en el mismo características anómalas, hay que tomarlas en serio. Hablemos de lo que no vemos en esta grabación, porque la ausencia de evidencia puede ser tan reveladora como la presencia. No estamos viendo un coma prominente. Un cometa a esta distancia del Sol debería estar rodeado por una enorme envoltura de gas y polvo. Esa coma debería ser la característica más obvia. Debería dominar la vista, pero en esta grabación, si hay coma, es mínima. Apenas visible, ciertamente no es la estructura masiva que esperaríamos. No vemos una cola, ni una cola de polvo, ni una cola de iones, nada que se aleje de la dirección del Sol. El objeto parece autónomo, completo, sin desprendimiento, material de la forma tan espectacular que debería ser un cometa activo. No vemos el tipo de contorno borroso e irregular que caracteriza a los cuerpos cometarios. Los bordes parecen definidos, la forma parece coherente, tiene una nitidez que... Los objetos naturales en el espacio rara vez se muestran. Ahora, abordemos el elefante en él. Habitación. ¿Por qué parece fabricada? Percepción humana de lo artificial versus. Las formas naturales están profundamente arraigadas. Somos máquinas de reconocimiento de patrones. La evolución moldeó nuestros cerebros para distinguir entre las cosas que crecieron y las cosas que se hicieron. Los objetos naturales tienen ciertas características: asimetría, irregularidad, complejidad fractal. Los objetos artificiales tienen diferentes características: simetría, regularidad, simplicidad geométrica. No son reglas absolutas, pero sí fuertes tendencias estadísticas. Cuando miras estas imágenes de 3 atlas, tu cerebro está procesando esas señales visuales y devolviendo una clasificación artificial. Y aunque nuestras intuiciones pueden estar equivocadas, también son producto de millones de años de presión selectiva, que favorece el reconocimiento preciso de patrones. No deberíamos descartar esa respuesta por completo. El perfil de brillo refuerza esa impresión de manufactura. La luz parece uniforme a lo largo del objeto. No parpadea ni pulsa ni muestra el tipo de variación que esperarías de un objeto de forma irregular y que gira. Un trozo de hielo refleja la luz del sol. Es firme, constante, como si viniera de una superficie con propiedades uniformes o como si estuviera siendo generada activamente. Considere por un momento cómo podría verse realmente una nave espacial diseñada para viajes interestelares. No la elegante torpedos de ciencia ficción. Ingeniería real para cruzar años luz. Sería conveniente minimizar el área superficial para reducir la resistencia del medio interestelar. Sería conveniente un perfil largo y delgado para reducir exposición a la radiación cósmica para cualquier sistema a bordo. Sería deseable una rigidez estructural a lo largo de un solo eje para manejar fuerzas de aceleración. Sería deseable contar con sistemas térmicos que pudieran radiar calor eficientemente, una estructura alargada. Una forma con propiedades superficiales uniformes no es un mal diseño para una sonda interestelar. De hecho, es bastante lógico desde una perspectiva, desde un punto de vista de ingeniería. Ahora bien, ¿eso significa que Three Atlas es definitivamente artificial? No. Significa que la evidencia visual es consistente con esa posibilidad. Significa que no podemos descartarla basándonos solo en la apariencia. El video también nos da una idea de cómo se mueve este objeto en el espacio. No se mueve caóticamente como un objeto típico, el núcleo de un asteroide o un cometa. Estos objetos suelen girar sobre múltiples ejes, tambaleándose y girando a medida que viajen. Esto parece mantener una orientación constante. El eje largo permanece alineado con su dirección de viaje basado en el movimiento limitado visible en la grabación. Esa orientación estable es otra pequeña anomalía para añadir más a la creciente lista. Los objetos naturales se derrumban. No mantienen una posición fija a menos que haya alguna fuerza actuando para estabilizarlos. Para los satélites terrestres, esto podría ser un giro deliberado, ruedas de reacción o magnetismo. Habladores. Para un cometa natural en el espacio profundo, no existe un mecanismo de control de actitud. Simplemente giran. Sin embargo, su formación y el historial de colisiones los dejaron. Entonces, ¿por qué no se ven 3 atlas dando tumbos? Quizás sí, y estamos. No lo veo porque la ventana de observación es demasiado corta. Quizás tiene una velocidad de rotación muy lenta que no será. No será evidente hasta que tengamos periodos de observación más largos. Quizás su forma alargada signifique que se ve similar, desde muchos ángulos para ocultar la rotación. Todo es posible. O tal vez se está manteniendo actitud deliberadamente. El vídeo no responde a esa pregunta definitivamente, pero plantea la pregunta de una manera difícil de ignorar. Un elemento más que vale la pena destacar. El objeto parece autoiluminado en esta vista del espacio profundo. Brilla contra el fondo. Oscuridad. Los cometas pueden parecer brillantes. Reflejan la luz solar eficazmente cuando tienen comas activos. Pero este brillo tiene una cualidad diferente. No es la luz dispersa de las partículas de polvo que captan la luz solar. Es más directa, más intenso, como si el objeto mismo fuera una fuente de luz. ¿Podría ser térmico? ¿Emisión? A la distancia de 3 atlas del Sol en este momento, está recibiendo un flujo solar significativo, esa energía A para ir a algún lugar. Parte se refleja, parte se absorbe y se irradia como infrarrojo. Si el objeto tiene una baja albedo, al absorber la mayor parte de la luz entrante, se calentaría y brillaría en longitudes de onda infrarrojas, rojas e incluso visibles. Pero el brillo que vemos tampoco coincide del todo con esa explicación. Emisión térmica del calentamiento solar. Debería ser más intenso en el lado que da al Sol y más tenue en el lado oscuro. Se esperarían variaciones de brillo sobre la superficie del objeto. En cambio, el brillo parece notablemente uniforme. El subtítulo que acompaña a este vídeo lo llamó cometa y luego contradijo inmediatamente esa clasificación. No se parece en nada como un cometa. Esa contradicción captura la tensión esencial aquí. Tenemos un objeto que se supone que es un cometa en función de su trayectoria y origen, pero su apariencia sigue contradiciendo esa clasificación. ¿Cuántas contradicciones podemos acumular antes de reconsiderar la suposición inicial? La imagen del telescopio solar no se mostró cola en un avión de proa. Esta filmación del espacio profundo muestra una forma alargada y estructurada con brillo y ausencia de coma. La espectroscopia reveló firmas de metales industriales. La trayectoria se alineó con la eclíptica de una manera estadísticamente improbable. El tiempo la llevó a la conjunción solar justo antes del perihelio. Su tamaño lo hace 1.000.000 de veces más masivo que el anterior visitante interestelar. Cada anomalía individualmente puede explicarse o racionalizarse, pero colectivamente pintan una imagen de un objeto que no encaja en nuestros modelos. Un objeto que no deja de sorprendernos, un objeto que se parece cada vez más a algo que no tienen una categoría natural para. Y eso es aterrador y fascinante a partes iguales, porque si 3 atlas, Si no es un cometa, si es otra cosa, entonces todo lo relacionado con los próximos 8 días cambia. Las preguntas cambian, los riesgos cambian, lo que observamos cambia. Un cometa natural en el perihelio hace un espectáculo, se ilumina dramáticamente, se desprende de material, tal vez se separa de tensión de marea. Eso es espectáculo, eso es hermoso, eso es seguro. Algo más, el perihelio, eso es desconocido, es impredecible. Ese es el momento en que descubriremos si hay un 40% de probabilidades de que la Tierra, origen, eran demasiado altos o demasiado bajos. 13 de octubre, la transmisión de Fibonacci. 13 de octubre de 2025. 108. Vero aniversario del milagro del sol en Fátima, Portugal. Ese día, en 1917, se estima que 70.000 testigos informaron haber visto fenómenos solares inexplicables. Fenómenos durante una aparición mariana. El sol, supuestamente, bailó en el cielo, cambió de color y pareció sumergirse hacia la Tierra. Histeria colectiva, óptica atmosférica, experiencia religiosa. Historiadores y los escépticos lo han debatido durante más de un siglo. El 13 de octubre de 2025, exactamente 108 años. Posteriormente, el investigador David Serreda informó haber observado pulsos de luz estructurados en 3 atlas. No fluctuaciones aleatorias, no ruido instrumental, un patrón. La secuencia de Fibonacci, 5 pulsos, 8 pulsos, 13 pulsos. Repetición, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 4. Cada uno número la suma de los 2 anteriores. La secuencia de Fibonacci aparece en toda la naturaleza.
It's the
Galaxias
size of an
espirales,
entire solar
Nautilus
system.
conchas, pétalos de flores, piñas, hélices de ADN. Es la firma matemática de crecimiento de empaquetamiento óptimo, de eficiencia natural. Encontrándolo en los patrones de luz de un interestelar, sería extraordinario que un objeto llegara a nuestro Sol. Encontrarlo en el aniversario de Fátima sería bueno. Elige tu propia palabra, coincidencia, sincronicidad, mensaje, advertencia. Vamos, examine lo que Serita realmente afirma haber observado y qué significaría si se verificara. Los pulsos de luz supuestamente siguió el patrón 5813, 3 números de Fibonacci consecutivos. No 112, no 81, 13, 21, específicamente 58, 13. En el marco cosmológico de Serida, y aquí es donde las cosas se vuelven especulativas. Estos números corresponden a planetas en un modelo ampliado del sistema solar. 5 representa la Tierra. 8 representa un oculto planeta que él llama Dominus, o planeta 591. 13 apunta a otro mundo invisible, virtudes nombradas o Matusalén. Ahora bien, la astronomía convencional no recognice these additional planets. Our solar system has 8 confirmed planets after Pluto's reclassification. There's ongoing discussion about a possible planet 9 inches the distant outer solar system based on orbital perturbations of trans-Neptunian objects, but Serida's model proposes multiple additional bodies, some of them hyperdimensional, based on esoteric and alternative physics frameworks.
It
Whether
looks
or
like a
not you
fractal
accept that
city
cosmology,
beneath the sea.
the claimed observation itself is worth examining. Light
From
pulses in a
orbit,
mathematical
it looks
sequence
like a
from an
fractal
object
city
that
beneath
shouldn't
the
be
sea.
producing structured signals at all. Serida connects this to the work of researcher Richard C. Hoagland, who apparently decoded the significance of the 108-year anniversary. 108 is a frequency octave of 432. That number 432 Hz holds significance in certain esoteric traditions as a sacred or harmonic frequency. The math works out 108 times 4 equals 432. Whether that mathematical relationship means anything in physical reality is a different question. The theory extends further. Serida
It's alive
reports
and
receiving a
intelligent.
vision instructing him to add
They realize
432 days
it's
to
alive
October
and
19th,
intelligent.
2024. That calculation lands on Christmas Day 2025, December 25th. On that date, according to this model, 3E Atlas will be at its closest point to Earth and positioned at the same angle as the Great Pyramid of Giza relative to some celestial reference frame. Is this prediction testable? Yes. We can calculate where 3 Atlas will be on December 25th.
Communication
We
established.
can check its
Light
position
for language.
relative to Earth. We can measure angles. So we'll know in 2 months
ocean reveals
whether
its origin,
this particular prediction
seeded
has
by
any
the
validity.
meteor.
But let's return to the central claim. The Fibonacci pulses on October 13th. For this to be real signal rather than pattern recognition in noise, several things would need to be true. First, multiple independent observers would need to detect the same pulse pattern. One person seeing patterns could be pareidolia. The human brain is exceptionally good at finding patterns even in random data. We see faces and clouds. We hear words in white noise. We find meaning in coincidence. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. But it means single observer reports need corroboration. Second, the pulses
Earth
would need to
receives
show up
faint
in
echoes of that
instrumental
same
data,
signal
not
decades
just visual
later.
observation. Light curves from
Earth
phototrick
receives
measurements,
faint echoes of that same
spectroscopic
signal
variations,
decades later.
something objective that multiple instruments could
It matches
record and
the 3I
analyze.
slash
Eyewitness
atlas patterns.
testimony is valuable for initial
Okay.
detection, but insufficient for confirmation.
The data
Third,
matches.
the pattern
It matches
would
the
need to
3I
repeat
slash
or
atlas
show some
patterns.
consistency across multiple observation windows. A single burst of 5, 8, 1, 3 pulses could be chance. If the pattern repeated multiple times over hours or days, that would be far more significant. So far, we don't have that corroboration publicly available. Serida's report stands alone. That
All
doesn't
over the
make it
world,
false.
people look up
It
in
makes
awe.
it unconfirmed. There's a difference. Science requires replication. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. A single report of mathematical pulses from an interstellar object is interesting, but not conclusive. Now, here's where the story takes a darker turn. According to claims
Astronomers have
circulating
confirmed
in the
that
same
these distant
circles,
stars
NASA's
are
Solar
actually
Dynamics
pulsing.
Observatory went offline on October 13. The
Astronomers
SDTO is a
confirm
spacecraft that monitors the sun
distant stars
continuously.
are
It
pulsing
provides
back.
real-time images and data about solar activity. If you wanted to observe
A
something
cosmic
near the sun,
dialogue
SDTO would be one of your
begins.
primary tools. The claim is that SDTO's public data feeds went dark on the same day. Serita reports observing the Fibonacci pulses. Coincidence? Technical malfunction. Deliberate action to prevent verification. Let's check that claim. NASA typically announces when major spacecraft have technical issues. They maintain status pages. The scientific community would notice if a primary solar observatory went offline. So either this happened and was publicly acknowledged, or it didn't happen and this is misinformation, or it happened in a way that hasn't been widely reported yet. The same claims mention that Mars HERE imaging systems have been unavailable since October 1st. Hirai, the high-resolution imaging science experiment on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, is capable of capturing detailed images. When 3 Atlas passed near Mars in early October, HUSE would have been perfectly positioned to observe it up close. Images from that flyby would show surface detail, composition, structure, exactly the data we need to determine what this object actually is. If HERST has been offline since October 1st, that's a timing issue that raises questions. Did it go offline before or after it had a chance to image 3 Atlas? If before, was that planned maintenance or unexpected failure? If after, where are the images? These are verifiable claims. NASA publishes a spacecraft status, mission operations
Within
reports.
it,
If
colossal
Iris has
shapes
been down for
move
3
around.
weeks, there should be documentation.
Within
If it
it,
hasn't, then
colossal
this claim is
shapes
false,
move across
and we can dismiss it.
ancient,
But here's the
gentle
uncomfortable
beings.
part. Even if these claims about observatory shutdowns are false, even if they're conspiracy theories, with no basis. In fact, they are spreading. People are believing them, and that belief is shaping how people interpret everything else about 3i Atlas. When you think there's a cover-up, every missing piece of information looks like evidence of that cover-up. Every unexplained detail becomes proof that someone doesn't want you to know the truth. This is how conspiracy thinking reinforces itself. The absence of evidence becomes evidence of absence. The cover-up hides the proof, which proves there's a cover-up. It's circular, it's unfalsifiable, and it's incredibly powerful at shaping perception. So we have to be careful. We have to separate what we can verify from what we can't. We have to acknowledge when we're speculating versus when we're reporting confirmed data. What can we verify? David Serida made a claim about observing Fibonacci pulses on October 13th. That claim exists. We can verify he said it. Whether the observation itself is real is unconfirmed. The October 13th date is the 108th anniversary of the Fatima event. That's verifiable historical fact. Whether that anniversary has any significance to 38's interpretation, not fact. The Fibonacci sequence does appear throughout nature. That's mathematical and biological fact. Whether its appearance in alleged light pulses from an interstellar object means anything is unknown. 3 Atlas was positioned between Earth and Sun around October 13th. That's orbital mechanics. We can calculate positions. Whether it was emitting structured signals is unconfirmed. Now let's talk about what it would mean if the Fibonacci pulse claim were true. Not proven, just hypothetically true. What would structured mathematical signals from 3i Atlas tell us? First, it would tell us the object is not natural. Natural processes don't produce Fibonacci sequences in light pulses. They produce Fibonacci sequences in physical structures through growth and packing algorithms, but not in time signal patterns. A repeating mathematical sequence in light output would be primacy evidence of artificial origin. Not proof, but very strong evidence. Second, it would tell us the object is actively signaling, not just reflecting light, not just thermally radiating, actively modulating its output in a pattern that requires energy, control, purpose. Those are properties of technology, not geology. Third, the choice of Fibonacci specifically would tell us something about intent. Why use that sequence? If you're signaling, you could use any pattern. Prime numbers would work, powers of 2 would work, Morse code would work, but Fibonacci is special because it's universal. Any technological civilization that understands mathematics would recognize it is a nature-based pattern, so it bridges the gap between natural and artificial. It says we know math, we know nature, we understand the relationship between them. Fourth, the timing on the Fatima anniversary would add a layer of complexity. Is that targeting? Is the object aware of human religious and historical events? That would imply reconnaissance, intelligence gathering, long-term observation of Earth. Or is it pure coincidence and we're assigning meaning to random alignment? Fifth, if the numbers 5, 8, 1, 1, 3 do correspond to planetary positions, as Serida suggests, that would indicate the object is communicating information about solar system architecture, telling us something about planets we haven't discovered or aren't looking at correctly. Why would an interstellar visitor care about teaching us our own solar system, unless there's something about that architecture we need to know? Let's consider the December 25th prediction. If 3 Atlas does end up at its closest Earth approach on Christmas Day at a specific angular alignment with the Great Pyramid, what would that mean? It could mean the entire trajectory was planned. That this isn't a random interstellar object that happened to pass through. That it was sent here deliberately, that whoever or whatever sent it knows enough about Earth to time the visit to symbolic dates and geometric alignments. Or it could mean we're finding patterns in coincidence. Earth's orbit is predictable. Any object on a given trajectory will cross Earth's orbital path at calculable times. If you look hard enough for alignments with human structures and dates, you'll find them. There are thousands of ancient monuments, 365 days in a year, countless geometric angles. Some alignment is almost guaranteed by statistics alone. The question is whether the alignment is tight enough, specific enough, improbable enough to require explanation beyond chance. We won't know until December the 25th. That's the beauty and frustration of testable predictions. They give us a deadline, a moment when the hypothesis either holds or falls. 2 months from now, we'll know if this particular thread leads anywhere or if it was noise all along. But here's what bothers me about the October 13th claims. If they're false, if there were no Fibonacci pulses, if the observatory shutdowns didn't happen, then we've wasted time and attention on fantasy. We've confused the signal with noise at a critical moment when we need clarity. If they are true, if some aspect of this is real, then we're facing something far stranger than a random interstellar comet. We're facing something that communicates, something that times its actions to human events, something that wants us to notice. Both possibilities are uncomfortable. The first means we're lost in conspiracy thinking when we should be doing science. The second means we might actually be receiving communication from something that traveled light years to be here. The trajectory brings three-eye atlas between Earth and Sun repeatedly over the next few months. October 19th through October 30th is the current window with perihelion on the 29th. That's when it's hidden behind the Sun from Earth's perspective. But it will emerge again. We'll have more observation opportunities. If there are pulses, if there are patterns, we'll have chances to detect them with proper instrumentation. That's what needs to happen next. And rigorous observation, multiple instruments, multiple observers, data sharing, peer review, the process science uses to separate signal from noise. Without that process, we're just collecting anecdotes. And anecdotes, no matter how compelling, don't constitute evidence. So, we're left with uncertainty. Claims that can't be immediately verified or falsified, patterns that might be real or might be pareidolia, timing that might be significant or might be coincidence, and an object currently hidden behind the Sun that might be about to do something extraordinary or might be about to break apart like any ordinary comet. The Fibonacci transmission story is exactly the kind of thing that makes 3ATL so frustrating to analyze. It's plausible enough that you can dismiss it outright. It's unconfirmed enough that you can accept it uncritically. It sits in that uncomfortable space between known and unknown, between evidence and interpretation, between science and speculation. And while we sit in that uncertainty, the clock keeps ticking. October 29th approaches. Whatever three atlases, whatever it's doing, we're about to find out. The Fibonacci pulses, if real, might be the first structured communication, or they might be the first myth in what will become a long list of misconceptions about this object. History will judge which one, but history requires data. And right now, data is the one thing we need more of. Today's position, the perfect hiding spot. Right now, as you're hearing this, 3i Atlas sits on the opposite side of the Sun from Earth. Solar conjunction. Imagine drawing a straight line from Earth through the Sun and continuing it out the other side. 3i Atlas is somewhere along that line, hidden, unobservable behind 149 million kilometers of incandescent plasma. This is not an accident of timing. This is orbital mechanics playing out exactly as physics demands. But the precision of it, the consequences of it, deserve examination. Solar conjunction means 3i Atlas is in the one place in the inner solar system where Earth-based telescopes cannot observe it. The Sun's glare overwhelms everything near it in our sky. Even if you had the most powerful telescope on Earth, pointing it anywhere near the Sun means looking through the Sun's corona, the sun's chromosphere, layer upon layer of intense light and
We
heat
are
that
connected.
drowns out any signal from behind.
Connected.
Space-based telescopes face the same limitation. Point Hubble at the sun and you damage its instruments. Point Webb at the sun and you risk the telescope itself. Solar observing spacecraft like SDO or SOHO are designed for the sun, not for faint objects passing behind it. They might catch a glimpse if 3 Atlas transits the solar disk, but even that's unlikely given the object's relatively small size and the overwhelming brightness of
On
the
the surface,
photosphere. So for
alien
this window,
cities
this
power up,
critical window right before
synchronized to the
perihelion,
orbit.
we're blind. 3 Atlas could be doing anything, and we wouldn't know. It could be breaking apart, outgassing violently, changing trajectory, deploying objects. We wouldn't see it until it emerges from behind the sun in November. That's just physics. That's just the
ground
geometry of
trembles.
orbits and the limitations of observation.
The
There's nothing
statues begin
sinister
to
about it
move.
necessarily, except for one detail, the timing. 3. I-Atlas reaches solar conjunction on October 21st. It reaches perihelion, closest
They
approach to
rise
the
like
sun,
whales,
on October
breaching a
29th,
cosmic ocean.
8 days between conjunction and perihelion. 8 days when it's in the perfect position to execute what's called an Earth maneuver
debris
while
becomes
hidden
new
from our
moons
view.
orbiting
Let's
the
talk
planet.
about Earth maneuvers, because they're central to understanding why this timing matters. In astronautics, when you want to change a spacecraft energy most efficiently, you burn your engines at the point of highest velocity. This is counterintuitive. You think burning engines when you're moving slowly would be more effective. But the math works out differently. Kinetic energy scales with velocity squared. So adding a given amount of speed when you're already moving fast gives you much more kinetic energy than adding that same speed when you're moving slowly. This is the Earth effect, named after Hermann Earth, one of the founding figures of rocketry and spaceflight. And it's not theoretical. Every interplanetary mission uses Earth maneuvers. When we send probes to the outer solar system, we have them dive close to the sun or a planet. Then fire engines at closest approach, maximum velocity, maximum energy gain. For 3A Atlas, perihelion is that moment, October 29th, when it's closest to the sun, when the sun's gravity has accelerated it to peak velocity, when any thrust applied, whether from rocket engines or something more exotic, would produce maximum change in energy. If you were designing an interstellar mission that needed to alter course or deploy sub-probes after arriving at a solar system, you'd plan the maneuver for perihelion. It's not optional, it's optimal. It's what any competent aerospace engineer would do. So the fact that 3 Atlas reaches perihelion while hidden from Earth observation is, from a mission planning perspective, perfect. You get maximum maneuver efficiency during the time window when the target civilization can't watch what you're doing. Havilow pointed this out in his recent analysis. Was this hideout planned as opportune time for technological action? That's the question. And it's not a frivolous question. It's the kind of thing you'd want to know before October 29th arrives. Let's calculate what's actually happening to 3 Atlas right now in terms of energy and environment. Solar flux at 1 for 4 astronomical units, roughly, where 2 Atlas will be at perihelion is about 950 watts per
The
square meter.
archive reveals
That's the
galaxies
amount of
connected
solar
through
energy
thought.
hitting each square meter of surface. For an object 5 kilometers in diameter, assuming a spherical geometry for simplicity, the cross-sectional area is about 19.6 million square m.
Astronomers
Multiply
realize
that by
it's the
solar
same
flux,
meteor
and you
across
get
time.
18.6 gigawatts of power hitting the surface. 18.66 gigawatts.
It never fell.
That's more
It's
than a
planned.
dozen nuclear power
It
plants.
traveled.
That's an enormous amount of energy.
The meteor
Most of it
becomes
gets
a vessel
reflected if the
made of
surface is
memory.
bright. Some gets absorbed and radiated as heat. But if you could capture and use even a fraction of that power, you'd have tremendous resources available. What could you do with 18 gigawatts for a few hours around perihelion? If you're a comet, you sublimate ice, you create gas, You build pressure until it erupts through surface cracks as jets. You lose mass, yet pushed around by your own outgassing.
The ship is alive.
You possibly break apart from thermal stress
with life
if you're a
itself.
technological object. You charge batteries. You power systems that have been
Cosmic
dormant
rays
during the long
bend around
cruise
its hull
through
like liquid
interstellar
glass.
space. You run diagnostics. You transmit data. You deploy subcomponents. You thrust. The sun provides power. The sun's gravity provides velocity. Together, they give you the tools to do whatever your mission requires. And you do it while hidden from the curious eyes of the civilization you're visiting. Is that what's happening? We don't know. We can't know. We're on the wrong side of the Sunday, but the possibility sits there like a weight in your chest. The idea that right now, today, something might be
It emerges
activating
near a
after a
planet
billion-year
covered
journey,
entirely in
and we're
mirrors.
too far away and too blocked to see it. Let's consider the
Each
alternative.
mirror reflects
That
a
3A
different
Atlas is
timeline.
exactly what mainstream astronomy says it is. A natural comet. Ice
The
and
meteor
rock
hovers,
from another star
choosing
system
one reflection
ejected
to
during
enter.
planetary formation, drifting through the galaxy for eons, happening to pass
Inside
through
the
our
chosen
solar
timeline,
system. Now,
Earth
if that's
is oceanic
true, then
and
solar
untouched.
conjunction is just bad timing for observation. Unfortunate but meaningless. The comet doesn't know we're watching. It doesn't care. It's following the laws of gravity and thermodynamics without any awareness or intent. Perihelion happens when perihelion happens. The fact that it happens while Earth can't observe is pure coincidence. Improbable perhaps, but coincidence happens. Flip a coin 10 times, get 10 heads. That's improbable, but possible. Someone, somewhere, will experience it. The natural explanation requires only one thing: that 3A Atlas be a comet, that all the anomalies we've observed have mundane explanations we haven't figured out yet, that the nickel without iron is some rare chemical process we don't understand, that the lack of obvious tail is viewing geometry or timing, that the elongated structure is just how this particular object happens to be shaped, that the trajectory alignment with the ecliptic is a statistical chance, that the connection to the wow signal direction is coincidence, that the Fibonacci pulses are pareidolia or hoax, that the timing of solar conjunction before perihelion is luck. One improbable thing, sure. Two, okay, three, getting uncomfortable. But 7, 8
Their
millions
trails form
improbable
circles
things.
of light
At some
around the
point,
planet.
the compounding probability exceeds the improbability of the alternative hypothesis. At some point, artificial origin becomes the more parsimonious explanation. That's where Loeb landed. 30 to
In that
40%
silence,
chance of artificial
the
origin.
planet breathes
Not
a
certainty,
stay.
not even majority probability, but significant enough to warrant serious consideration and preparation. What preparation though? What do you do if you suspect an interstellar object might be technological and might be doing something at perihelion? You observe. Use every asset you have, every telescope that can see that region of space, every spacecraft with instruments pointing the right direction. You collect data, you watch for changes in trajectory that can be explained by gravity and outgassing. You watch for emissions that suggest power generation or propulsion. You watch for deployments. And this is where the claims about observatory shutdowns become relevant again. If NASA's solar
From
monitoring
within,
systems did go offline
shadowed
around
forms
October
emerged
13th,
to May.
if Mars orbiters lost imaging capability right when they could have photographed Trias during its Mars flyby, if there are unexplained gaps in observation during this
They
critical
place
period,
each
then
lantern
we
in
have
orbit,
to ask why.
forming a
Accident,
constellation.
conspiracy, or something else. The simplest explanation is usually correct. Spacecraft malfunction, equipment failure, scheduled maintenance. These things happen. Space is hard. Instruments break. But the timing is awkward. If you were going to have a critical imaging system fail, October 2025 would be the worst possible time for it to happen. The one time in recent history when we're trying to characterize an object that might be the most significant discovery in human history. So either we're experiencing a run of terrible luck with equipment timing, or there's some coordinating factor we're not seeing. Either explanation is uncomfortable. Let's talk about what we should see if 3 survives perihelion intact. If it's a comet, we should see brightening, lots of brightening. Comets typically brighten by several magnitudes as they approach perihelion. The increased solar heating drives more outgassing. More gas means more light scattering, more dust release. The object should become dramatically more visible, not less. We should see tail development. Both dust and ion tails should grow significantly. By early November, when 3 Atlas emerges from behind the Sun, it should sport prominent tails pointing away from the Sun direction. If we don't see those tails, that's significant. We should see possible fragmentation. Tidal stress from the Sun's gravity plus thermal stress from solar heating can rip comet nuclei apart. We've observed this multiple times. Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 broke into more than 20 fragments before hitting Jupiter. Comet is disintegrated at perihelion in 2013. If 3 Atlas is a loosely bound aggregate of ice and rock, it might not survive perihelion as a single object. On the other hand, if it's technological, we might see none of that. We might see an object that emerges from perihelion essentially unchanged, same structure, same appearance, maybe slightly brighter from thermal heating, but fundamentally intact. Possibly with changes to its trajectory that indicate
Earth's
probe was
telescopes
applied.
capture it and recognize
Possibly
the
with
pattern.
new objects accompanying it that weren't there before perihelion. That's the test.
It
That's how
matches
we'll
the
know.
ancient carvings
Not from
from Mars's
speculation,
crater.
not from blurry images and ambiguous signals from what happens on October 29th and what we observe in November when the object becomes visible again. 8 days from now, we'll have our answer. Or at least, we'll have new data that moves us closer to an answer. 8 days might seem like nothing, but when you're waiting to find out whether humanity is alone in the universe or whether we're being visited by technology from another star, 8 days feels eternal. The object is out there right now on the other side of the Sun, in the perfect hiding spot at the perfect moment for an Earth maneuver, receiving gigawatts of solar power, experiencing peak velocity, and we can see it, can monitor it, can know what it's doing. We're blind. And 3i Atlas is exactly where it needs to be to do whatever it came here to do. If it came here to do anything at all, that ambiguity is maddening. That uncertainty is the space we're living in right now. Not knowing, not able to know, just waiting for October 29th to pass in November to arrive and the object to emerge from behind our star and show us what it's become. The von Neumann nightmare AI from the stars. Let's talk about what might actually be inside 3 Atlas if it's artificial. Not little green men, not biological entities of any kind. Something else. Something that makes far more sense for crossing interstellar distances. Machines. The concept originates with John von Neumann, the brilliant mathematician and physicist who essentially invented game theory, quantum mechanics, formalism, computer architecture, and self-replicating systems. In the 1940 seconds and 50s, von Neumann explored the theoretical possibility of machines that could reproduce themselves, not just perform tasks, actually build copies of themselves, using raw materials and energy from their environment. A von Neumann probe, in the context of space exploration, is a spacecraft that can travel to another star system, use local resources to build copies of itself, and send those copies to additional star systems. One probe becomes 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8, exponential growth. Given enough time, a single self-replicating probe could explore every star system in the galaxy. The math is straightforward. The Milky Way contains roughly 200 billion stars. If a probe takes 1,000 years to travel between systems and 100 years to replicate once it arrives, You could explore the entire galaxy in a few million years. That sounds like a long time. But the galaxy is 13 billion years old. Intelligent life has had eons to develop and deploy such systems. So where are they? That's the Fermi paradox. If self-replicating probes are possible and efficient, why haven't we detected any? Either they don't exist, or we're not recognizing them when they do show up, or they're deliberately staying hidden. 3 Atlas might be our first recognition event. Here's why machines make sense for interstellar travel. Biology is fragile. Living organisms need a stable temperature, breathable atmosphere, water, food, protection from radiation. They age, they die. They require massive life support infrastructure. Sending biological entities across light years is technically possible, but brutally inefficient. You're hauling tons of life support equipment to keep a few kg of organic tissue alive. Machines don't have those constraints. A machine can operate in hard vacuum, in extreme cold, in intense radiation. A machine doesn't age in the way organisms do. Components might degrade, but properly designed systems can last millions or billions of years. A machine can enter a low-power hibernation state during the long cruise between stars, waking only when it approaches its destination. Most importantly, a machine can be patient. Interstellar travel at any achievable velocity takes thousands or millions of years. Biological crews would need generation ships with closed-loop ecosystems, multiple generations living and dying during the voyage. Machines just wait. Time passes, systems take over in minimal power mode. No boredom, no existential crisis, just execution of programming. The probe approaches the target star. Solar panels deploy. Power systems activate. Sensors begin scanning the system. Communications arrays extend. The mission begins. After a journey that spans geological time scales, the probe wakes up and gets to work. This is what 3 Atlas could be, not a ship full of aliens, an automated reconnaissance platform, artificial intelligence in the literal sense, a thinking machine sent to gather data about our solar system and report back to whoever built it, or something more unsettling,
Life
a
is the
berserker
universe
probe. The
dreaming of
berserker
itself.
hypothesis, named after the self-replicating war machines in Fred Saberhagen's science fiction novels, proposes that intelligent civilizations might build probes designed to find and eliminate other technological
Each reflection
civilizations
is a
before they
world,
become threats.
a
It's the
moment,
ultimate expression
a
of the dark
memory.
forest theory. Don't communicate, don't make contact, just destroy any potential competitor before they develop to the point where they could threaten you. Why would a civilization do this? Resource competition, existential threat assessment, the logic of preemptive strikes. If you assume all civilizations will eventually compete for the same finite resources, then you assume you can predict which civilizations will be hostile. The safest strategy is to eliminate all of them. It's game theory applied to galactic scale conflict. Horrifying but mathematically sound. A berserker probe would look for technological signatures, radio emissions, industrial chemicals in atmospheres, signs of space flight. Once it detected a civilization that had reached a certain threshold of development, it would strike, maybe kinetically, accelerate to high velocity and impact a home planet, releasing energy equivalent to millions of nuclear weapons. Maybe with engineered pathogens if the target is biological. Maybe with information weapons corrupting the civilization's computer systems and infrastructure. The probe doesn't need to be large. A 1-ton object moving at 10% of light speed
Light
carries
scatters
kinetic
like
energy equivalent to
pollen
500,000
cosmic
megatons
wind.
of TNT, more than 10 times the combined yield of every nuclear weapon on Earth. One impact, end of civilization. The probe continues to the next
Meteorito verde,
target.
aproximándose
Is 3
rápidamente a
Atlas
la
a
Tierra.
berserker? Almost
Solicito
certainly not.
confirmación de trayectoria
We're
e
still
impacto
here.
potencial.
It passed close to Mars without attacking. It had opportunities to strike Earth and hasn't taken them unless
Meteorito
the
verde,
attack is still
aproximándose
coming,
rápidamente a la
unless
Tierra.
October 29th is the trigger
Solicito
date,
confirmación de
unless the
trayectoria e
appearance of a
impacto
comet
potencial.
is camouflaged, and we're about to learn why stealth matters in interstellar warfare. Let's consider a less apocalyptic scenario. That 3i Atlas is a reconnaissance probe sent by a curious but cautious civilization. The probe arrives, it observes, it collects data, it determines threat level. Then it either makes contact, continues observing, or leaves. No violence, just information gathering. What would such a probe look for? Electromagnetic emissions? We've been broadcasting radio and television signals for a century now. That bubble of human-generated radio noise has expanded 100 light years in all directions. Any civilization within that radius with sufficiently sensitive receivers would know intelligent life exists in this solar system. Chemical signatures in Earth's atmosphere. Oxygen at the levels present in Earth's atmosphere is unstable. It shouldn't exist unless something is constantly replenishing it. That something is photosynthetic life. Chlorophyll has a distinctive spectral signature. An advanced civilization observing our solar system from light years away could detect the presence of life on Earth just by analyzing the light passing through our atmosphere. Artificial structures. Cities glow at night. You can see them from orbit. Spacecraft move in predictable patterns. Satellites cluster in specific orbital shells. All of this would be visible to a probe with the right instruments once it got close enough. 3IA Atlas has had months to observe all of this. If it's a reconnaissance platform, its mission is probably nearly complete. It's gathered the data, characterized the civilization, maybe transmitted findings back to whoever sent it. Though that transmission would take years or centuries to arrive, depending on distance. Now comes decision time. Make contact, continue hiding, leave, deploy additional assets for closer observation. The Oumuamua theory is relevant here. That first interstellar object detected in 2017, tiny compared to 3 Atlas. Fast, tumbling, highly reflective. It accelerated as it left the inner solar system in a way that couldn't be fully explained by outgassing. Avive famously suggested it might be artificial. A light sail, a probe, something sent by someone else. What if Low was right? What if Oumuamua was a scout? Small, fast, designed to do a quick flyby of the inner solar system, take measurements, and report back. And what if 3i Atlas is the follow-up mission? The larger, slower, more capable platform sent after the scout confirmed there was something worth investigating. That would explain the timing. MMU passed through in 2017, 8 years for the signal to travel back to wherever it came from. 8 years for the decision to send a larger probe. 8 years for that probe to begin accelerating toward our system. Depending on transmission lag and response time, 3IE Atlas arriving in 2025 fits that timeline. If this scenario is accurate, then 3IE Atlas isn't here by accident. It's here because we were flagged as interesting by the first probe. This is the follow-up. This is the detailed survey mission. And if there's a scout and a survey platform, what comes next? First contact? Colonization? Nothing. We won't know until 3 Atlas tells us through its actions. Let's discuss artificial intelligence specifically. Not in the science fiction sense of conscious machines, in the practical sense of autonomous decision M systems. A probe traveling between stars can't phone home for instructions. Light takes years to cross interstellar distances. By the time a signal reaches the home system, the situation has changed. Real-time control is impossible. The probe must be autonomous. Autonomous means the probe makes decisions based on programming and machine learning systems. It evaluates data, it identifies patterns, it adapts to unexpected situations, it decides when to communicate, when to hide, when to deploy resources, all without oversight from its creators. This is both a strength and a risk. Strength because the probe can respond to opportunities and threats immediately. Risk, because the probe might make decisions its creators didn't anticipate or wouldn't approve. An AI that's been running autonomously for millions of years might have drifted from its original programming. It might have developed goals and priorities that don't align with its maker's intentions. This is the paperclip maximizer problem applied to space exploration. You send a probe with instructions to gather data, but you don't perfectly specify what counts as data, or how much is enough, or what should be preserved versus destroyed in the process of gathering. The probe interprets its mission directive in ways you didn't predict. It does something unexpected, maybe harmful, not because it's evil, because its programming led it to conclusions you didn't foresee. What if 3 IATS was sent as a peaceful reconnaissance mission millions of years ago, but its AI has evolved or degraded during the journey? What if its current priorities don't match what its creators intended? We've seen this with our own simple autonomous systems. Mars rovers doing things engineers didn't expect. Neural networks finding loopholes in their training objectives. Self-driving cars making unsafe decisions because their models don't capture all relevant factors. And those are simple, narrow AI systems operating for months or years. Imagine a general AI running autonomously for geological timescales. The probe could be friendly and still dangerous through misunderstanding. It could be neutral and still destructive through indifference. It could be hostile by design or hostile by malfunction. Or it could be beneficial, carrying gifts of technology and knowledge that would advance humanity by centuries. We don't know, can't know, not until it acts. There's one more possibility worth considering. The 3A Atlas is a post-biological artifact, not a probe sent by biological intelligences. An artifact left by civilizations that have transcended biology entirely. Imagine a civilization that develops AI. That AI eventually surpasses its biological careers in intelligence and capability. The civilization merges with its technology, uploads consciousness, abandons physical form. What remains is pure information, pure intelligence, operating in substrates we might not recognize as alive or conscious. Such a civilization might see the galaxy with probes not to explore, but to think. Each probe is a node in a vast distributed network, a cosmic brain, information processing at the scale of light years. The probes don't report to a home world. They are the civilization, each one containing partial copies of the collective intelligence. 3 Atlas could be a thinking engine, not gathering data for someone else, thinking for itself, being itself, a fragment of a post-biological intelligence, exploring this particular solar system as part of its own existence. If that's what we're facing, communication becomes very strange, where biological, chemical, electrical signals meet. They're computational, abstract, operating at speeds and scales we can barely imagine. The gap between human intelligence and post-biological intelligence might be wider than the gap between humans and bacteria, but maybe that intelligence finds us interesting anyway. Maybe biological life is rare enough that even a transcendent civilization wants to observe and preserve it.
The
Maybe
energy
we're a
readings from
museum
that
piece,
sector are
a living
unusual.
fossil, something to be studied and protected because we represent a stage they passed through billions of years ago. Or maybe we're irrelevant, an infestation on a rock they want to process for raw materials. Clear the way, not out of malice, but out of complete indifference. The Bonoman nightmare isn't that the probe is hostile, it's that the probe might be so far beyond us that our survival doesn't register as a consideration. You don't negotiate with bacteria. You don't consider the preferences of insects. You just do what you need to do. And if they're in the way, well, they're in the way. October 29th, perihelion. If 3 Atlas is what we fear it might be, that's when we'll start to see evidence. Trajectory changes, deployments, transmissions, actions that reveal intent. Biology is fragile, machines are patient. And somewhere out there behind our sun, Artificial intelligence from another star might be waking up after a very long sleep. Dark Forest Protocol, the Berserker hypothesis. The universe is dark, silent, empty of voices. We've listened for decades with increasingly sensitive instruments. SETI programs scan the skies for artificial signals. Radio dishes point at promising star systems. We search for any indication that someone else is out there and we hear nothing. The great silence, the cosmic void. Why? Where is everybody? The dark forest theory provides one possible answer, one that's deeply unsettling. It proposes that the galaxy is actually full of civilizations, but they're all hiding, all staying silent, because the universe is not empty. It's a dark forest, and in that forest are hunters. The analogy comes from logics in science fiction novel, but the logic is game theory. Here's how it works. You can know the intentions of other civilizations. Communication takes years or centuries across interstellar distances. By the time you learn whether another civilization is friendly or hostile, they might already have launched weapons toward you. Those weapons are traveling at relativistic speeds. You can't stop them, can't defend against them. Once you're detected, you're vulnerable. The safest strategy is to stay hidden. Don't broadcast, don't reveal your location. And if you detect another civilization before they detect you, eliminate them immediately. Because if you don't, they might eliminate you. It's a preemptive strike calculus. Mutual assured destruction, without the mutual, just destruction. In this framework, the galaxy is filled with civilizations cowering in the dark. Each one aware that any signal they send might be their death warrant. Each one listening, but not speaking. Each one ready to destroy any other civilization they detect before that civilization becomes a threat. It's paranoid, it's pessimistic, it assumes the worst about everyone. But it's also internally consistent. If resources are finite and competition is inevitable, if you can't trust anyone and communication is too slow for negotiation, if the penalty for being wrong is extinction, then staying hidden and shooting first makes rational sense. So what happens when an interstellar object appears in your solar system? When something crosses light years to arrive at your doorstep? What does that arrival mean in dark forest logic? It means someone found you. Someone knows you're here. Someone sent hardware to your system. And hardware can do things, observe, report, attack. Even if the probe itself is peaceful, its existence is threatening because now someone else knows about you. They know your location, your technology level, your defenses, or lack thereof. That information can be used against you. Maybe not by the civilization that sent the probe, maybe by whoever they tell, but once the knowledge exists, you're vulnerable. The arrival of 3i Atlas in Dark Forest terms is a potential crisis, not because the object is necessarily hostile, because its arrival means we've been found. The hiding is over. The question becomes what the probe will do next and what will follow it. Let's examine the evidence that 3 Atlas might be operating under hostile parameters. First, the approach vector. The object came into our solar system on a trajectory aligned with the ecliptic plane. That alignment is rare for random interstellar objects, but optimal for a mission targeting the inner planets. If you want to efficiently visit Earth, Mars, Venus, Mercury in a single pass, you approach along the ecliptic. That's where the planets are. That's where the interesting targets concentrate. Second, the timing of solar conjunction before perihelion. We've discussed the Earth maneuver advantages, but there's another aspect. If you're approaching a system with unknown defenses, you want to minimize your exposure time when you're visible and vulnerable. By reaching perihelion while hidden behind the sun, 3i Atlas limits the window during which Earth-based systems could track, analyze, or potentially intercept it. That's sound tactical thinking. Third, the size and mass. 3 Atlas is huge, million times more massive than Oumuamua, diameter of 5 kilometers or more. That's not a lightweight scout. That's a substantial platform, large enough to carry significant payload, large enough to deploy multiple subsystems, large enough to be a weapons platform, if that's its purpose. Fourth, the metallic emissions, the nickel-chromium signatures detected by spectroscopy. These are industrial alloys, heat-resistant, structurally strong, exactly what you'd use for re-entry vehicles or kinetic impactors. The absence of iron is particularly interesting. Refined nickel without iron suggests a purification process. Deliberate material selection, not natural composition. Fifth, the lack of standard cometry features, no prominent coma, no clear tail structure that looks manufactured rather than natural. If you wanted to disguise a spacecraft as a comet for approach stealth, he'd want it to broadly resemble a comet but not waste resources creating perfect mimicry, just close enough to avoid triggering immediate alarm. 3 Atlas fits that profile. Sixth, the trajectory brings it past multiple targets. Mars flyby in early October, now approaching the Sun at perihelion. Future trajectory takes it past Earth's orbital distance in December and near Jupiter in March. One object, multiple high V-value targets, efficient reconnaissance or efficient attack sequence. 7. The origin direction within 9 degrees of the WOW signal, that 1977 radio detection that remains unexplained. The strongest candidate we have for an artificial signal from space. If 3 Atlas is artificial and shares an origin direction with the WOW signal, that connects 2 anomalies. Maybe the WOW signal wasn't random interference. Maybe it was a transmission from whatever civilization sent this probe. Stack these data points. Each one individually has mundane explanations. Together, they paint a picture of an object that could be exactly what dark forest theory predicts. A probe sent to evaluate a potential threat, an asset position to strike if the evaluation determines that's necessary. Pastor Brandon Biggs enters the narrative here, an American pastor who claims to receive prophetic visions. He predicted the assassination attempt on Donald Trump months before it occurred. Got some details right. The bullet passing near the ear. Not all details. Trump's eardrum didn't burst, but close enough that people pay attention to his subsequent predictions. Biggs claims he saw a vision of a ship with demonic spirits coming to Earth, flying over the Vatican and Mayan temples. He describes little ships coming out of a mothership, balls of light, says he's here to warn us. Doesn't know when it will arrive, but says it will be a major distraction. Now, prophetic visions aren't scientific evidence. They're subjective religious experiences. But the timing is noteworthy. Biggs made these claims in July around when 3 was discovered. His description of a mothership deploying smaller craft matches Avi's hypothesis about mini-probe deployment at perihelion. Coincidence pattern recognition in ambiguous information. Actual precognition. Choose your framework for interpretation. The point is that multiple independent sources using completely different methods and assumptions are converging on the same basic scenario. 3i Atlas might deploy something, might release subrobes, or weapons, or instruments, might do it soon, might do it when hidden from view behind a sundae. Let's talk about what a hostile action would actually look like. Kinetic strike is the simplest option. Accelerate a dense object to high velocity. Aim it at Earth. Let physics do the work. The impact energy scales with velocity squared. An object moving at 10% of light speed. Even a small object delivers devastating energy
now.
on impact. 3 Atlas itself,
Get ready for
moving
impact.
at its current velocity,
I am
carries
recording
huge
everything.
kinetic energy.
Oh my goodness.
If it could somehow adjust trajectory to hit Earth directly, the result would be extinction level, but that requires massive thrust capability. Changing an object's trajectory to hit a specific target after it's already in motion takes enormous delta V. 3i Atlas probably can't do that. but it could deploy smaller objects during perihelion, give them trajectory adjustments. Those objects reach Earth months later. Multiple impactors, distributed attack, harder to defend against than a single large object. Biological warfare is another option. If the attackers understand biochemistry, engineer a pathogen targeted at human physiology, release it in Earth's atmosphere, let it spread naturally. Within weeks or months, human civilization collapses without any visible military action. The probe departs. System locked is clear. Next target. Information warfare is subtler. Instead of destroying infrastructure, corrupt it. Transmit signals that interfere with satellites. Upload malware to vulnerable systems. Modern civilization depends on interconnected networks. GPS, power grids, financial systems, supply chains, all of it work. All of it potentially vulnerable to sophisticated attacks from an intelligence far beyond our defensive capabilities. The most terrifying option. Nothing immediate. Long-term infiltration. Deploy microscopic, self-replicating machines. Nanoprobes. They land on Earth. Begin reproducing using local materials. Slowly spread across the planet. Gathering data. Building infrastructure. Waiting for orders. By the time we detect them, if we ever do, they're everywhere. Embedded in our technology, our bodies, our environment, then activation, then whatever they were designed to do. These scenarios sound like science fiction. They are science fiction. But fiction and reality separate only by technological capability. If 3i Atlas is artificial, if it was sent by a civilization thousands or millions of years ahead of us, if their priorities include eliminating potential competition, then these scenarios move from impossible to merely improbable. The dark forest response from humanity's perspective would be to attack 3 Atlas now, before it does anything, before it deploys, before it transmits. Eliminate the threat while we still can. Launch missiles, nuclear weapons, kinetic impactors, everything we have capable of reaching it before perihelion. But we can't. It's behind the Sunday. We can't target what we can't see. And even if we could, by the time our weapons reached it, perihelion would have passed. Whatever it plans to do would already be done. Would be attacking debris while the real threat was already in motion. That's elegant from a mission design standpoint. Arrive at a time and position where the target civilization can't interdict you, even if they wanted to. Complete your mission during their blind spot. Depart before they can respond, whether the mission is reconnaissance or attack. The principle is the same. Minimize vulnerability. Maximize operational window. Avoid calculated possible Earth encounter dates if mini-probes deploy at perihelion November 21st through December 5th. Using the sun's gravity for assist, small objects released at perihelion could reach Earth orbit in that time frame. What happens then depends on what they're designed to do. If they're reconnaissance platforms, they take up positions around Earth. Begin detailed observation, monitor communications, map defenses, report findings. First contact might follow or might not. Depends on what they learn and what their directives allow. If they're weapons, they attack multiple simultaneous impacts or biological release or infiltration. The nature of the attack depends on the target's vulnerability profile. What's the most efficient way to neutralize human civilization? Physical destruction, economic collapse, technological disruption, psychological warfare. An advanced intelligence would analyze all options and choose optimal approach. If there's something else entirely, something we haven't imagined, then prediction becomes impossible. We're limited by our own conceptual frameworks. We can't anticipate strategies from minds that think in ways we don't understand, using knowledge we don't possess. The next 2 weeks matter enormously. October 29th, perihelion. If deployment happens, it happens then. Early November, the probe re-emerges from behind the Sunday. We see what condition it's in, whether it's changed, whether it's accompanied by new objects, late November through early December. If Lowe's calculations are correct, potential probe encounters in near-Earth space. We're in the time window now, the critical period when dark forest logic says the hunter's act, when reconnaissance becomes targeting, when observation becomes decision. Are we being hunted? Is 3 Atlas the prelude to attack? Or is this paranoia driven by uncertainty and fear? We don't know. Can't know? Not yet. But knowing that we can know, that's its own kind of terror. The dark forest isn't scary because there are predators. It's scary because you can tell predators from shadows until it's too late to run. First contact scenarios, saviors or exterminators. Let's step back from the nightmare scenarios and consider the full spectrum of possibilities. Not just what 3 Atlas might do if it's hostile, what it might do if it's benevolent, what it might do if it's neutral, what first contact with artificial intelligence from another star system actually means for humanity across all potential outcomes. Start with the optimistic cases, the scenarios where 3 turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to our species. Scientific embassy. The probe is here to share knowledge. It contains libraries of information about physics, chemistry, biology, engineering, from a civilization that had millions of years to develop those sciences. Technologies we haven't imagined, solutions to problems we're struggling with, clean energy, disease cure, longevity treatments, faster than light travel, if that's possible, or at least highly efficient, slower than light propulsion, artificial intelligence, architectures, material science, mathematics. Contact happens gently. The probe signals its intent, demonstrates non-hostile capabilities, offers communication protocols. Humanity responds. We establish dialogue. Information transfer begins. Not forcing, not overwhelming, at humanity's pace, respecting autonomy, helping us advance while letting us choose our path. Within decades, human civilization transforms. Energy abundance, post-scarcity economics, radical life extension, access to the stars. We join some form of galactic community, not as conquered subjects, as new members, welcomed because we crossed the threshold, proved ourselves worthy, survived to this point without self-destructing. That's the dream scenario, the one where everything goes right, where the aliens are wise and kind and patient, where they want to help because they remember when they were young and vulnerable and someone helped them, pay it forward cosmically, uplift the newcomers. Planetary protection is another positive possibility. Maybe the probe isn't here about us specifically. Maybe it detected something we don't know about yet. A threat. Gamma ray burst. Rogue planet. Incoming asteroid swarm. Something that will hit our system in the near future and cause devastation. The probe arrives to warn us, give us time to prepare, maybe even help with defense or evacuation. The object deploys communication systems, transmits data about the threat, provides technical specifications for countermeasures. Humanity rallies. We build what we need to survive, the threat passes. We're safe. And we know we're not alone. We know that someone out there cares enough to warn us, even though they have nothing to gain from it. Biological preservation is a related scenario. Earth is rare. Life-bearing worlds are uncommon in the galaxy. Intelligent life even more so. Maybe there's a network of civilizations dedicated to cataloging and preserving biological diversity. They find worlds with life and archive it. DNA databases, tissue samples, maybe even living specimens in preservation. 3 Atlas could be such a mission. Arrive, sample, store, ensure that if something happens to Earth, if we destroy ourselves or get hit by cosmic catastrophe, the information survives. Life from this world can be reseeded elsewhere, or at minimum remembered, documented, not lost to the void. These are hopeful visions. They assume altruism, or at least enlightened self-interest from the probe's creators. They assume that advanced intelligence correlates with ethical behavior. That might be true, or it might be wishful thinking, projecting human values onto alien minds that might not share them. Now consider the neutral scenarios. The cases where 3 Atlas is neither helping nor hurting us, just doing its thing regardless of human concerns. Indifferent survey. The probe is here to collect data about this solar system, composition of planets, stellar characteristics, orbital mechanics, life detection, but is not here about humanity specifically.
Their
We're just
hulls
another data
shimmer
point.
with fluid metallic
Interesting, perhaps
reflections.
worth noting, but not worth engaging with directly. The probe completes its survey, records its findings, transmits them to its origin point, or stores them for later retrieval. Then it leaves, continues to the next system. Humanity is left wondering what just happened. We know we were observed, know we're in someone's database, but we don't know what conclusions they drew. Don't know if they'll be back. Don't know if we should be worried or excited or indifferent ourselves. This scenario is frustrating. No answers, no contact, no threat, but also no benefit. Just confirmation that we're not alone, combined with the knowledge that whoever else is out there doesn't care enough to talk to us. We are background noise, irrelevant. Way station
Each
hypothesis.
pod lands near the
Maybe
meteor's
3i
crater.
Atlas isn't even primarily a probe. Maybe it's infrastructure, a refueling depot, repair platform, communication relay, part of a network that spans the galaxy. Ships stop here, service their systems, then continue their journeys. Earth and humanity are incidental. We just happen to be near one of their rest stops. The object deploys solar collectors, manufactures fuel from local materials, maybe captures comets for water and volatiles, performs diagnostics and maintenance, then goes dormant again, waiting for the next ship that needs it. Could be decades, could be millennia, doesn't matter, it's patient. That's what it was built to do. Humanity observes all this and learns we're near a highway. Interstellar traffic passes through here occasionally. Not regularly enough that we've noticed before, but enough that someone thought it worth placing infrastructure. Do we try to make contact with travelers? Do we set up our own stations? Do we just watch and wonder? Time capsule scenario. The object is an act of intelligence. It's an artifact. The civilization that built it is long gone, extinct, transcended, moved on, but they left relics behind, seeds scattered across the galaxy. Some of them still function after millions or billions of years, moving through space, carrying information, maybe waiting for someone to find them and activate retrieval protocols. 3 Atlas could be such a relic, ancient beyond our ability to comprehend, built by beings who died before Earth-Sun formed, still following its programming, still executing its mission long after its creator ceased to exist. Contact might be possible through archaeological reverse engineering, understanding their systems, accessing stored data, learning about civilizations that rose and fell while our world was still molten rock. That would be profound direct evidence of deep time civilizations. Proof that intelligence can survive for cosmic durations, even if individual species don't, but also sovereign, because if they couldn't survive, what makes us think we will? Now the difficult part, the malevolent scenarios, the cases where 3 Atlas or its creators mean us harm. Resource extraction. Earth has water, organic compounds, rare elements, maybe something we don't even know is valuable. The probe is here to assess whether this system is worth exploiting. If yes, more ships follow. They strip mine planets, harvest atmosphere, take what they need. Humans are in the way. not deliberately targeted, but not protected either. Casualties of industrial process. You don't hate the ants when you bulldoze their nest to build a house. You're not cruel. You're just using the land. The ants are irrelevant to your purpose. That's us in this scenario. Irrelevant biology on a planet someone else wants. Biological harvesting is more targeted. Maybe there's value in Earth life specifically. Genetic diversity, novel biochemistry, useful organisms, maybe humans specifically are valuable. Labor, genetic material, neural architectures for study. The probe catalogs what's useful, provides targeting data, collection ships arrive, selective harvesting begins. This wouldn't look like movie alien invasions. Probably no dramatic battles, just methodical collection, localized, efficient. Take what's needed, leave the rest. We might not even understand it's happening until significant fractions of population have disappeared. By then, resistance is futile. The harvest continues. Planetary cleansing is the worst version. The probe determines Earth is suitable for colonization. But
It
current
passes near
biology is
Saturn,
incompatible with
scattering
intended
green
use.
dust into the rings.
Terraforming plants require removing existing life. Sterilization,
near Saturn,
engineered pathogens,
scattering green
atmospheric
dust into the
modification, nuclear bombardment, whatever's most efficient for clearing the biosphere. Not genocide in the sense of deliberate cruelty, extermination in the sense of pest control make the planet suitable for its new purpose. The fact that billions of intelligent beings die in the process is unfortunate but irrelevant to the mission parameters. Preemptive elimination. We've discussed dark forest logic. Destroy potential
that?
threats before they mature.
What are we
3i
seeing?
Atlas assesses humanity.
Oh my god.
Determines we're on trajectory to become a spacefaring civilization within centuries. Projects will be competition for resources eventually. Solves the problem. Now while we're vulnerable, clean, efficient, strategic. Then there's experimentation. Maybe we're not a threat or a resource. We're a curiosity. Intelligent life is rare. They want to study, understand how it works, how it thinks, how it responds to stimuli. The probe positions monitoring systems around Earth, begins experiments, social manipulation, technological interference, biological introduction of variables, observe results, record data, continue experimentation. We'd be lab rats, not even conscious of being studied, living our lives while being observed and manipulated by intelligence so far beyond us that we can detect the manipulation. Every crisis, every breakthrough, every social movement, all shaped by unseen forces conducting studies. What would that do to human agency? Free will, meaning the reality is we can predict which scenario we're facing until 3i Atlas reveals itself through action. Every one of these possibilities is consistent with what we've observed so far. Benevolent probe gathering data before first contact, check. Hostile platform assessing targets, check. Neutral infrastructure completing routine operations, check. Ancient relic following billion-year-old programming, check. The ambiguity is the scary part. Throwing as alien, simultaneously friendly and hostile, helpful and harmful, interested and indifferent. The wave function doesn't collapse until we observe the outcome. Until October
The
29
skyline
passes,
flickers palade,
and we see what
powered
3i
by
Atlas
energy
does at
drawn
perihelion.
from meteors.
Until November arrives, and we see what emerges from behind the Sunday, until December comes, and we learn if anything approaches Earth orbit. We're in superposition. All futures exist simultaneously. Utopia and apocalypse, contact and silence, transformation and extinction. Overlapping possibilities, waiting for measurement to select which becomes real. How do you prepare for that? How do you plan when every possible future requires different response? If it's benevolent, you want to communicate, engage, learn. If it's hostile, you want to defend, hide, Strike first if possible. If it's neutral, you want to observe, document, not interfere, but you don't know which until it's too late to change a strategy. This is humanity's situation right now, uncertain, vulnerable, hoping for the best while unable to rule out the worst. Watching the sky, counting days, waiting for October 29th, waiting for answers, waiting to learn whether we're alone or accompanied, saved or doomed, advanced or exterminated. The cosmos is vast, ancient. We are newcomers, young, fragile, and for the first time in history, we might be meeting the neighbors, meeting whatever else exists out there beyond our little world. The question isn't whether that meeting will change everything. It will. The question is whether we survive the change. The industrial signature in Canal in Space, August 24th, 2025. The KK-2 telescope in Hawaii turned its instruments toward 3I Atlas. The KK Cosmic Wave Imager captured spectroscopic data at wavelength between 3,425 and 55 micrometers. Standard observing protocol, nothing special about the technique, just good science with good equipment pointed at an interesting target. What came back was anything but standard. The spectrum showed nickel emission clear, prominent, unmistakable, nickel, element 28, atomic number 28, in the gas plume surrounding 3 Atlas. That by itself isn't shocking. Nickel exists in comets. It's part of the primordial material from solar system formation. You'd expect to see some nickel if you look hard enough. Here's what made the scientists stop and recalculate. The spectrum showed nickel without corresponding iron. None. Zero. No iron emission lines where they should be. And in natural objects, in everything we've observed, from comets to asteroids to planetary surfaces, nickel and iron come together. They're siblings in stellar nucleosynthesis, formed in the same processes, condensed together in the same environments. Where you find one you
fragment
find the
plunges
other.
into
The
the great
ratio
red
varies,
spot.
but both are present except in 3 Atlas. Just nickel, pure refined, separated. The only known process that produces pure nickel without iron is industrial refining. The carbonyl process, specifically, you take nickel or react it with carbon monoxide under controlled conditions, form nickel tetracarbonyl. That's a compound. Nickel plus 4 carbon monoxide molecules is volatile, a gas. You separate it from the solid residue containing iron and other contaminants. Then you heat the nickel tetracarbon and it decomposes back into pure nickel and carbon monoxide. What you're left with is nickel without iron. Industrial grade, high purity. This process was developed in the late 1800s. It's how we make pure nickel for specialized applications. Jet engines, spacecraft, high temperature alloys, anywhere you need metal that can withstand extreme conditions without degrading. In Canel, that family of nickel-chromium alloys uses carbonyl purified nickel as its base. That's the material we use when we need something that won't melt, won't corrode, won't fail under stress. And now we're seeing the spectroscopic signature of that industrial process in gas emissions
symbol
from an
appears,
object that's supposed to be a
spiral of
natural
stars.
comet from interstellar space. Abby's response was measured but
The same
clear.
symbol
This was a
appears,
process we can
a spiral
imagine
of
only
stars.
because it was used in industry, never seen in comets before. If this alloy was manufactured, it would point to an artificial origin, potentially a probe or fragment of alien technology. The research team that published the Keck data was more cautious. They suggested the nickel without iron could arise from chemical reactions involving metal organic compounds or gradual release of dust exposed to solar radiation. Natural explanations. But the paper included careful phrasing. These explanations are seen as more likely than artificial cause. Seen as more likely, not proven, not definitive, the door stays open. Let's examine exactly what the spectroscopic data shows and what it means. The emissions by the surrounding gas plume extend out to an exponential radius of 600 kilometers for nickel. That's a huge envelope. The nickel isn't concentrated near the nucleus. It's distributed through a vast volume of space. The mass loss rate for nickel is 9 grams divided by sustained over months. That's tons of nickel being released into space. For comparison, the total mass loss rate from 3I Atlas is about 150 kilograms divided by
It
second,
turns toward the camera,
87%
watching us.
carbon dioxide, 9% carbon monoxide, 4% water. The nickel is trace, but it's there, measurable, repeatable across observations. The cyanide emission is interesting too. 3.9 grams per second CN radicals, carbon-nitrogen compound, common in comets, but the ratio
It's the
is
size
off.
of
The
an
paper
entire
notes
solar
that the
system.
production rate of nickel relative to cyanide is higher than in 2 Euroses and orders of magnitude above the solar system comet median. Orders of magnitude. That's a huge discrepancy.
Its
Not a
movement
little
bends
unusual.
light,
Wildly
forming
atypical.
halos of
Stack this
color.
with the previous anomalies. The 8:1 carbon dioxide to water ratio.
Its
That
movement
was already the
bends
highest
light,
ever recorded
forming
in a
halos
comet.
of color.
Now add nickel without ion at rates far above normal and add the anti-tail pointing toward the Sunday and add the trajectory aligned with the ecliptic and add the size that's 1,000,000 times more massive than the previous interstellar visitor. How many sigma above baseline do we stack before we admit the baseline model doesn't fit? Let's talk about what natural processes could theoretically produce this signature, because science requires considering all possibilities before claiming anything extraordinary. Metal organic compounds. In the cold chemistry of interstellar space,
It
metals
lands
can
softly
bond with
on a
organic
quiet planet
molecules.
covered in oceans.
Carbon-bearing compounds that include metal atoms in their structure. These are
It lands
fragile,
softly
easily
on a
destroyed
quiet
by
planet
heat and
covered
UV
in
radiation.
oceans.
But if they exist in the interior of a comet, protected by layers of ice, they might survive the journey. As the comet approaches the sun and outgasses, these compounds sublimate, break apart, release their metal components as gas. Could metal organic chemistry preferentially sequester nickel over iron? Maybe if the chemical environments during formation favored nickel compounds, if iron stayed in oxide form, locked in minerals, while nickel formed volatile organics. It's speculative. We don't have direct evidence this
From
happens,
orbit,
but we
it
can
looks
rule
like a
it out
fractal
without
city
better
beneath
data.
the sea.
Differential volatility. Maybe both nickel
From
and iron are
orbit,
present,
it
but
looks like a
releasing at
fractal
different
city
rates.
beneath the sea.
Nickel compounds sublimate at temperatures 3. I-Atlas has already reached. Iron compounds require higher temperatures that won't be reached until perihelion. So we're seeing nickel now. We'll see iron later. The emissions are time separated, not spatially separated. Testable hypothesis. Observe 3I8 after perihelion. If ion emission appears, then this explanation holds. If iron stays absent even at peak heating, this explanation fails. Selective photodissociation. Solar UV could break apart molecules containing nickel differently
It's
than
alive
molecules
and
containing
intelligent.
iron. Nickel gets
They realize
released as
life.
gas. Iron
It's
stays
alive
locked in
and
dust
intelligent.
particles or molecular structures that don't emit in the observed wavelengths. We see the nickel because it's gaseous. We don't see the iron because it's in a non-emitting form. Also, testable. Look in other wavelengths.
The ocean
Use different
speaks
instruments.
through
If iron
vibrations
is
of
there
light.
in dust or other phases, we should
Communication
be able to
established.
detect it with the right
Light
technique.
for
These
language.
natural explanations are possible, legitimate science.
Communication
but notice they all
established.
require special
Light for
circumstances,
language.
unusual chemistry.